Hey there, my friends. I would like to continue on that conversation we were having about container gardening, but this time I want to talk specifically about plants. Oh, and if you're new here, hey, I'm Gray. A Texas Master Gardener. I'm growing out of just south of Dallas, but it's Zone 8B, and I'm just your friendly neighborhood gardener here to help you grow. But for those of you who are familiar with myself and familiar with our previous conversations, last time we spoke, we were talking about container gardening or growing for the first time. We're talking about balconies, we're talking about apartments, condos, and so forth. We're talking about that small square footage gardening. And while I feel like that was a great conversation to have, next, I feel like we really need to dive into actual plants. What plants can we grow? So I'm going to give you a couple of recommendations. But now, one thing I want you to consider is taking consideration my growing zone, my microclimate, and then my specific preference as far as plants go. Because that's truly going to matter. I'm going to prefer and I'm going to like to eat different things than you. There's nothing wrong with that. But of course, I'm going to have um, my specific likes and dislikes. Thus, with that being said, I'm going to say my first recommendation for you is herbs. And I know you're thinking, but Gray, I want to grow tomatoes. Why are we starting with herbs? Well, let's look at it from a point of view of that beginner gardener, right? I'm a former educator, and whenever I presented a new topic to my students, I always scaffolded, right? I always made sure that we were ramping up. I didn't immediately start them off with the hardest portion of the course. I started off on an easy victory, an easy win. Does that make sense? So the herb that I'm going to recommend is one that's super easy to germinate, super easy to propagate, and just generally very easy to grow. And that's going to be basil. And yes, basil. The reason why we're talking basil is because, again, like I said before, it's super easy to grow. You can grow basil just about anywhere in the world. And as far as container growing, it's very convenient. It's very forgiving, especially to our new growers. And not to mention, it comes in a proverbial ocean of varieties that you can grow. We're talking everything from, of course, your large leaf basils, your Genovese basils. What about your purple basils or your cinnamon basils? Those, see, now this is another reason why I choose basil, right? Because they smell amazing in your garden. Okay, sorry about that. I get a little excited when we start talking about one of my favorite herbs to grow. Yeah, I do when we're talking about basil. But it's true though. I mean, Basil is truly just a feast for the olfactory system. That's your sense of smell, right? So that aroma is going to hit you soon as you walk out on that balcony, soon as you're going to walk out on that patio. Plus, there's a cornucopia of different recipes you can actively use basil for. And now another added bonus to growing basil, and this is the main reason I really grow so much of it, is because it's pest repelling properties. That's right. Usually when I'm planting my tomatoes and my peppers, just like we have here, this is a fall tomato that I'm growing. I think it's a cherry tomato. I don't label my tomatoes like I should, but I think this variety is a cherry tomato. Um, right next to it, in the same exact pot, I have some. I believe this is a cinnamon basil that's growing along with it. And yeah, I think these are three cinnamon basils that I have in here. Oh, I do know that they're cinnamon basils because we're just going to take a look at our flowers right here. Because that almost pinkish, almost lavender color, that's usually a telltale sign of the cinnamon basil. And then plus, of course, the shape of its foliage too. Your cinnamon basil is going to have more of a spiky kind of shape in its foliage, opposed to like your Genovese or your large leaf basil, which is going to have more of an overall oval kind of shape. So yeah, I grow a lot of basil. I mean, because again, it's so easy to grow. You can direct sow it. You can start it in, like a growing kit. It can actually be grown hydroponically as well. Um, I usually will have several containers of basil around the main container garden, but I also direct sow it out in my square footage garden. with my tomatoes. I mean, basil usually is all around my garden. There's probably like maybe a good 25 to 30 basil plants in this garden right now. So I probably have more basil than I even know what to do with right now. That's because, again, I love that scent and I love its pest repelling properties. Um, and it's an easy fix. I mean, a lot of times people come to me like, "Hey, pest X is mess." Oh, speaking of pests, okay, so I talked about it with tomatoes, right, and peppers. The reason why I pair it, why I companion plant basil with my tomatoes and my peppers, is because of the tomato hornworm. And now, if by chance you're not familiar with the tomato hornworm, it is a caterpillar that once it creates a beautiful butterfly, it's amazing in the garden. But the tomato hornworm can completely defoliate a tomato plant and a pepper plant within 24 hours. One tomato hornworm. They're a caterpillar that particularly likes that nightshade family, right? And now, while I'm no entomologist, I do know enough about the hornworm and the fact that it loves tomatoes and it loves those peppers that I like to grow. So that's why I'm usually, when I'm growing my tomatoes and peppers, I will have 1 to 2 basil plants per tomato plant. Because just this season alone, I actually did lose one of my tomatoes to a tomato hornworm. And I mean, it completely defoliated the plant. And the reason behind it is because I had basil in that bed, but there was like one corner of that bed that I didn't plant a basil because honestly, I just kind of missed it. And I mean, Buddy got in there and just shredded the whole thing. But I digress. So look, basil, easy win, easy victory. If you're starting out a new garden, you're starting out a new container garden, go with basil to get that quick, instant gratification that we're looking for, right? I mean, because we're doing this for that dopamine hit, for that feeling of that win, that reward center of our brain. So plant you some basil. Oh, and in regards to soil, right? Basil's not too picky. You don't have to get very elaborate with the soil. You're not going to spend tons and tons of money on your soil. Just make sure that it's something that is slightly acidic. And that's going to be most of your bag soils, right? Most of the bag soils that you can buy is going to have that slight acidity that you want. And two, make sure that it is well draining. Basil doesn't, like I said before, I don't think there's a lot of plants, annual plants that we're going to grow that likes just sitting in a marsh, sitting in a swamp. So you want to make sure that you have adequate drainage and you're good to go as far as basil. And now in regards to containers, I mean, basil has kind of a complex root system and it can get it grows very fast, right? So you can easily start them in a small pot if you'd like. But because basil's so easy to grow, you can easily start like in a one gallon container just like this. Eventually, and when I say eventually, maybe in about 4 weeks or so, you're gonna have to pot this up into a larger container, or you can just potentially trim back those roots too, because something I want you to realize, and this is something I say a lot when I'm out in the main garden, but it also applies because we are talking about plants. It applies in our container gardens as well. 50% of plant growth is going to happen below the soil line. So as your basil starts to develop and get larger and bigger and producing all these leaves, you're going to produce more and more roots. So you can either pot up or you can choose to trim back those roots because basil is pretty tough plant. So trim back those roots won't shock it too much and it should be completely fine. And now when it comes to our next plant, if basil was our beginner plant, the next plant that I'm going to recommend is going to be intermediate level. And that's going to be thyme. But not just any thyme. I'm going to tell you about my favorite thyme to grow. And that's lemon creeping thyme. And now, the reason why I want to tell you, almost fell down there. The reason why I want to tell you more about lemon creeping thyme is going to be the same exact reasons while I was mentioning basil. And that's because of the smell. Honestly, the lemon creeping thyme smells like almost like a bottle of Lysol, but not too overbearing. It just has this fantastic lemony scent that is just so inviting into the garden. I mean, because think about it. I mean, I don't know about you, but the whole reason why I garden is, yes, for sustainability and growing things that I love to eat and eat with my family and so forth. But it's also the peace that comes with it. And what's more peaceful than having inviting, enticing smells to welcome you every time you step into your garden? And that's what I get from my lemon creep in thyme. I'm sorry, I just keep running my fingers through it because it smells so great. Earlier when I told you that, I would consider thyme more of an intermediate herb or plant to grow. And the reason behind that is because notice something here. This pot that the thyme is growing in currently, this is a terracotta pot. And there's a rationale behind that. Because remember how I told you with the basil, you can pretty much stick basil in any old thing and it'll grow. Trust me. I have grown basil in Cool Whip containers, old Tupperware. I've grown it everywhere with basil. But thyme is gonna need a little bit more care. And the reason being because when we're talking about thyme is gonna be drainage is definitely gonna be critical for thyme. I mean, so using something that's gonna be like a gritty potting mix, that has a lot of drainage is gonna be key. So something that's going to use like horticultural sands, perlite, and so forth, because if I told you basil doesn't like sitting in soggy soil, thyme definitely doesn't like it. Additionally, thyme isn't going to want a soil that's going to be too rich in nutrients because, in all earnest, too rich of a soil mix can actually reduce overall flavor and overall growth when it comes to your thyme. As far as your growing conditions and parameters, I would say, one, go with a terracotta pot or a clay pot, something that's definitely in your budget. And then when it comes to your soils, we're going to try to recreate those Mediterranean climates that thyme is actually from. And so we're going to go with something that has, a very gritty mix, some perlite, not anything that's going to retain a lot of moisture. And then with speaking of moisture, I would reduce our watering, only really watering once that soil has kind of dried out. Because remember, this is a Mediterranean plant. So whenever we're growing any kind of plant for that matter, we're trying to recreate those natural environments of where the plant originally came from. I mean, with that being said, I have grown thyme. I mean, look at our thyme that we have right here. This is in a plastic container, but I made sure to add a nice mixture of horticultural sand. And then, of course, I have my particles of perlite in there so that this pot can drain out as necessary. And really, when it comes to our watering, make sure we're reducing that watering because, again, Mediterranean plant. But going out here in zone 8B, North Texas, this actually works great for my environment. So I'm sorry, I got to smell again. Oh, that smells great. And now, one additional note that I want to say about thyme is that thyme actually is, despite being a Mediterranean plant, actually is cold hardy. I mean, because it can survive in up to zone 4. But the key thing and the real killer would be frost in this situation. So we're talking about container gardening and container growing. This would be a situation that if you want to keep your thyme as a true perennial during the winter months, protect those containers, bring them in, protect them from that frost. Now, for my next recommendation, I had to come all the way out to my front yard because this one I'm going to consider an advanced level plant for your container garden. And I currently actually don't have any in containers myself. And that's going to be rosemary. And now I know what you're thinking, like, why would you consider rosemary an advanced level container plant? Um, because they don't like being in containers. Simple. That's the only way I can put it. And then plus, this is a situation where we're going to have to unlearn some of those bad habits that we might have picked up. But you know what? I'm actually putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. Before I get ahead of myself, let me tell you about rosemary. I love rosemary. It's a fantastic smelling plant. I love to cook with it. And just like I told you about before, those pest repelling properties. Again, this is another one that's a feast for the olfactory system. And those strong aromatic plants like this, a lot of your pests are not going to like. It's funny. I was saying about its ability to be able to repel, like aphids and so forth. And I remember when I put this video out, one guy was like, "Oh yeah." it repels aphids. I can show you some rosemary that's completely covered in aphids. One thing to understand, yes, while it can help repel aphids, excuse me, something to understand is that a lot of your pests only go to like your vulnerable plants. So, what conditions have you created for this plant to weaken it to a state where a pest is going to be attracted to it? Does that make sense? It's kind of like out in the wild, right? You know, the lioness is not going to go for the leader of the pack of gazelle. It's going to look for that one it can pick off or two that it can pick off that's straggling towards the back. I mean, the same kind of applies for your pests. Now, of course, there are some pests that are indiscriminate and don't care and will go after anything and everything. But for the most part, remember, we're creating an ecosystem and we're trying to create the most ideal conditions for our plants. So, with that being said, yes, if you have a plant in a weakened state, then of course pests are going to go after it. But I have this plant all throughout my garden and it keeps a lot of pests away. Okay, sorry about that. I had to get up off that knee. So I'm gonna sit on my kid's swing while I talk to you. I don't know if this is a good idea, but I digress. I love rosemary. Like I said, for all those rare reasons. Plus, I love cooking with it and so forth. And the reason why I would classify rosemary as an intermediate plant is because when we're talking about container garden, rosemary doesn't really like containers. But I mean, it can be done. And now the reason why I say it doesn't really care for container gardening is because it's really going to depend on us, our behaviors as the gardeners, right? Because let's face it, especially when we're talking about beginner gardeners, and no disrespect to you beginner gardeners, because trust me, I was a beginner gardener at one point in time too. Anybody here on the internet who acts otherwise is completely insane. We've all killed plants. I actually have just killed plants this season. 20 years of growing, I still kill plants too. Okay, let's get that out the way. But when it comes to a beginner gardener or any excited gardener, first thing we want to do is we want to care for our plants. We want to love them. We want to water them. We want to give them the best growing conditions and light conditions and soil. But rosemary is going to be, again, a Mediterranean plant, just like we talked about with the thyme. When it comes to your soil, you're going to want, again, that well draining, sandy loam. I'm not even going to say a sandy loam, maybe just a completely sandy soil, almost completely devoid of any kind of nutritional content. Because when it comes to, again, like I stated earlier, we are trying to recreate those conditions that the plant is used to, where it comes from. And being a Mediterranean plant, rosemary does not need all that. It's drought tolerant. It actually kind of thrives on neglect. I mean, truly. I mean, when it comes to my rosemary, in all earnest, once rosemary is established, I can't even tell you when the last time I've watered my rosemary. I mean, honestly, I let the rain kind of take the wheel. And remember, I'm in North Texas. I'm in the Dallas area. So between what, May until about maybe August, September, we're at a perpetual drought stage with like random rain events that come up. So, I mean, honestly, I may give it just a little bit of water here and there if I'm like watering strawberries and so forth. It's up here, but I really don't maintain it at all. And that's what the rosemary loves. So, it's one of those that truly thrive in a neglect type of situation. So, again, that's why I plant mine all throughout the yard, areas that I know that I'm just gonna kind of basically walk past. The smell of the rosemary is still gonna hit me, and it's still enticing and enchanting, and I love it. But this is not something that I'm going to maintain. This is gonna be my low maintenance or zero maintenance kind of gardening area. But I do strategically place it all throughout my yard because of its pest repelling properties. And again, like I said, I cook with it a lot, and thus that's why I would consider this one kind of a an advanced level herb to be growing in containers. Because when it comes to rosemary, I would probably place this one, if I was growing mine in container, I would probably put this in a con I would probably put this in like a grow bag. Actually, matter of fact, I do have one in a grow bag. See, I grow so many things, sometimes I forget why I have things planted. Let's go take a look. Yep. See, look at that. I completely forgot about it. This is actually a sprig of rosemary. This is a propagation. Oh, that's another thing I love about rosemary. Super easy to propagate because this was a sprig that I used for cooking, clipped it off, placed it in some soil, and look at that. We have a whole new rosemary that's growing right here. Now, what was in this container? I mean, look at this soil. I mean, this is so dry. But these were some nasturtiums that I had planted out here in the garden to act as a trap crop. And those Japanese beetles that I was talking about completely destroyed it. But that's what the nasturtium was here for. This was that trap crop to keep them away from the rest of my garden. But yeah, so with that being said, I mean, I completely forgot that this rosemary is here, but it's doing just fine. So yeah, when it comes to rosemary, I would say it does the best the more you leave it alone. I mean, truly, it thrives on neglect. Um, and that's why I would consider it like an advanced level crop because we have to. It's a behavioral situation. Does that make sense? But I mean, then again, the same thing can be said with lavender as well. I love lavender for the very same reasons. And lavender, again, Mediterranean plant, is going to have those same type of situations as well. Um, but it can be done. So if I was to grow lavender or rosemary for that matter in containers, it's going to be something that water can wick away from. So let's go the most cost effective route first. And so that's going to be our grow bags, right? Grow bags are going to be more cost effective than your terracotta pots, unless you find them on sale. When you find them, okay, so I think I've mentioned this to you guys before, but for those of you who are new, the fall, this time right now, the date of the release of this video, this is the best time to look for garden bargains in most of your nurseries and big box stores because it's the end of the spring and summer growing season. A lot of your big box stores and your chains don't really focus on winter or fall gardening. The money is definitely going to be on the spring and on the summer side. That's when people are more likely to spend that disposable income on gardening. Now, for those of us who grow year round, this is a perfect opportunity for us. But you know what? I'm going to retract that last statement because this is a great opportunity for spring growers too. All right, so most of your retail chains, they are preparing for the holidays. They're preparing for Halloween, barely. Thanksgiving, a little bit, but mostly for Christmas, right? So they are moving all. If you go to any garden center right now, I'm not going to say the names of stores, but if you go to a store with a name that starts with a W, you know what I mean, and go and look in their garden center right now. Most of their inventory is gone. They might have some Tupperware in there. But basically, these are just placeholders because they're going to start getting all of the big equipment that they sell during Christmas. So you're talking about your bikes and your outdoor toys and stuff, because these are big things that the retail stores sell during Christmas, and they use the garden center for that. But this is an opportunity for you. I've come into those garden centers when they're trying to get rid of most of that inventory. I've bought boxes of seeds for $1. I've bought containers galore. I mean, terracotta, you name it. So if you are thinking about maybe growing some rosemary or some lavender or even thyme for that matter, and you're looking for those terracotta pots, this is the perfect time to go out and buy them. And now, if you're watching this video and hopefully this video does well, and you're watching this video and it's May or something, right, of 2026 or so forth, and you're thinking, well, great, I don't have that opportunity to do that. Well, just wait. Just wait to the fall. I'm telling you, around August, September is the best time to go out and buy all those containers because most of the merchandisers, they've already written that off as a loss. So then that big box store can then essentially sell it for a discounted price because they're trying to get it out of the way for that valuable real estate so that they can sell all this Christmas and holiday merchandise. Does that make sense? This is a time, honestly, like the raised bed that I had my children build for their strawberries. I got that for like $15 during one of these sale events. My very own raised bed container that I have back there, I got that for like $25. And I think normally it's like was 125. Now, don't expect them to advertise these prices. You just have to know when to go to these stores to take advantage. And now, of course, this is not a video on bargain shopping for gardening. This is me telling you about plants to be able to grow, to start off container gardening on your apartment balcony or patio or what have you. But at the end of the day, like I told you before, guys, I'm all about helping. So if I can help you save some money, especially in these economic times, that's what I'm going to do. So if you can save a couple of dollars and then still be able to enjoy the peace and serenity that comes from your garden, hey, I'm all about it. And now, if you've stuck around all the way for the end, thank you. You rock. Because I feel like I've been talking your ear off. But when it comes to gardening, when it comes to growing, when it comes to plants, this is my happy space. So I could talk about this all day long. So with that being said, you chosen few who have gotten to the end of this video. I know I've only touched on like 3 plants. There's more that we could talk about. What would you like for your next video? You want me to talk more about more herbs that you can grow? Or are we looking for some of our perennials or annuals? What would you like for the next subject to be? Because this video right here, this was a suggestion from you guys. You asked for plant recommendations. And so I felt like, you know, I'm here for you. So let me know in the comments what you want the next video to be. And I got you. Now, as far as herbs go, just one more, well, a couple more plants that I want to mention as kind of like an honorable mention. And that's going to be oregano. Like, Graylin, you didn't talk about oregano. Well, oregano, the reason why I didn't really mention it is because oregano can kind of be an aggressive grower. Oregano is one of those herbs that's actually in the mint family, and that's going to be the second one that I'm going to talk about for my honorable mentions. So it's in the mint family and can be considered a really aggressive grower. So it's one you're going to constantly need to prune back. But by no means am I telling you shouldn't grow it. Actually, definitely grow it if you are a fan for those Italian flavored dishes and such. Oregano is a good one that's a easy win. As far as skill level, I would put it, right along that beginner level because it's going to grow pretty fast and pretty bushy. Make sure you constantly prune it so you can get that bushy shape that you might be desiring. And now the next one that I want to mention to you, I told you, number 2, I was going to talk about it, mint. Now, don't get it twisted. I love mint. Mint is honestly one of my favorite herbs to grow. Um, Reason being is because I'm a fan of nice smells. I have orange mint, chocolate mint, mojito mint, pineapple mint, strawberries and cream mint, of course, your spearmints and your peppermints. I mean, I could go on and on. That's how much mint I grow. But the reason why I'm not really talking about it in this video so much is because I've done countless videos before on mint. Definitely go and check out the playlist, check out some of the videos I have in my catalog. I've talked about mint a lot, but I will mention this. Should you choose to grow mint, remember, we're talking about container and patio growing. Make sure you contain it. Make sure you keep it in a container because, like I said with oregano is aggressive. It's in the mint family. But true mints, like your spearmints, peppermints, and so forth, are actually invasive. I mean, because I think what it was maybe last year. Yeah, I think it was last year that I put a reel out on Instagram and it got over 150,000 views because people were telling me all about their horror stories from growing mint. From everything from, yeah, my neighbor started growing mint and it took over his yard, then it started taking over my yard, or I started growing mint in containers and then I wasn't keeping up with the pruning. So it actually spread out into my yard. Now I can't get rid of it. Great. How do I get rid of it? So, yeah, if you're going to grow mint, it has to be properly contained and pruned. But it is a fun herb to grow, especially like, for instance, I, I said it's funny because I said I wasn't going to talk about mint, but look, here I am talking about mint, chocolate mint. Chocolate mint is just amazing. I mean, you can make teas out of it. I've made mint chocolate brownies with my daughter with it. I love it. Orange mint. Orange mint, when I water it, all this summer I kept trying to figure out what does this orange mint smell like? It smells like something from my childhood. I can't place it. I figured it out finally, like last month. It smells like Fruit Loops. So when it comes to mint, this is one that I'm going to classify as an advanced level. Not so much because of its challenge to grow, because it is truly easy to grow plant. Is going to be one of those situations where it's going to be behavioral. because you got to make sure you maintain it, that you keep it in check. You have to stay on top of it because, especially during its growing season, it sends those stolons, those runners out like crazy. And each one of those runners is a propagation for a new plant. Not to mention, it flowers and goes to seed, and then those seeds spread all throughout your yard. I mean, while it's a favorable and, good tasting, good smelling, it really is like a weed. So yeah, so those are going to be my honorable mentions. As far as this whole starting a container garden series and starting an herb garden series, go for those easy wins, go for those, quick victories, because that's when the addictive nature of gardening really kicks in. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, no, gardening is 100% addictive. There is not one grower that I know that hasn't this season expanded their whole entire garden. It may start off in containers, but once you get that success, you start branching out into more portions of your yard. You start taking over the backyard, you start taking over the front yard. Then you just, I don't know, it's just infectious because it's something about that rewarding feeling of, hey, I grew this with my own two hands. It takes over. But you know what? I like that feeling. So yeah, I'm gonna keep growing. I'm gonna keep expanding. And I guarantee you, if you're watching this video, you are too. I mean, think about it. Why do you think there's so many different YouTube channels on just gardening alone, right? Because there's so many of us out there. And I'm all for it, man. I mean, I say the more the merrier, the more people growing, the better. But hey, it's been amazing speaking with you as always. Like I said, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Definitely suggest what we should do for our next container video. But I'll talk to you again real soon.